I want you to think about someone. Someone whose name alone does something to your chest. Not someone who loves you back. We're not talking about that kind of someone. We're talking about the other kind. The harder kind. The person who exists in your life just closely enough to remind you of everything you feel. And just far enough to make sure none of it ever reaches them. You know exactly who I mean. You've been standing outside their glass door for a while now, watching them exist in a warmth they don't even know they're in. This is for you. It never arrives with a warning. You don't wake up one morning and decide to give your heart to someone who won't give it back. Nobody chooses this consciously. Nobody thinks, you know what sounds like a wonderful way to spend the next several months of my life? Loving someone from a distance while they remain completely unaware. It just happens. The way weather happens. Gradually, then all at once. It starts as something almost innocent. A quality you notice. A way they laugh at something unexpected. A moment where they say something that reveals a depth you weren't prepared for. A conversation that ended but refused to leave your head. And before you even have language for what's happening, you're already there. Already rearranging your inner world around a person who hasn't asked you to. You notice everything. The way their voice shifts when they talk about something they love. The small, unconscious gestures. The kindnesses they extend without realizing they're being kind. You are paying attention with your whole self. Building a version of them inside yourself that is so detailed, so carefully observed, so tenderly held, that it almost doesn't matter that they've never seen any of it. Almost, but not quite. Here is what nobody understands about loving someone who doesn't love you back. It is not a small thing. People will try to minimize it. They'll call it a crush, a phase, an infatuation that just needs time to dissolve. They'll tell you that you don't really know this person. That what you feel isn't real love because real love requires reciprocity to exist. But I'd push back on that. What you feel is completely, devastatingly real. You see them, truly see them, in a way that most people in their life probably don't. Because you are watching without agenda. Without the performance that both people naturally slip into when they know someone who cares is watching. You see the unguarded version. The version that exists when they're not trying. You notice the moments when their confidence slips and something more vulnerable shows through. You notice the wounds they carry lightly. The dreams they mention once and never bring up again. The way certain topics make them go quiet in a way that tells you more than anything they actually say, you hold all of this. More carefully than they hold it themselves sometimes. You care about their becoming, about the person they're turning into with a tenderness that has no outlet. No destination, no where to go. It just lives in you, quietly, completely, while they sit on the other side of the glass, unaware, and somehow still the most captivating person in any room you share. And so you learn to perform. This is the part nobody talks about. The exhausting daily performance of being completely fine. You learn to arrange your face into an expression of casual comfort when they walk into a room. Even though something in your chest does something complicated every single time. You learn to listen to them talk about their life, their plans, their problems, sometimes their romantic interests, with steady, supportive presence. Offering thoughtful responses while absorbing each word in two completely different ways. You learn to celebrate their wins with genuine warmth. Warmth that somehow coexists with a private grief you can't fully explain. You learn the precise calibration of how much you're allowed to show. Too much, and you risk everything. The friendship, the proximity, the small regular doses of them that you've come to depend on more than you'd like to admit. Too little, and you disappear entirely. So you find a narrow channel between those two extremes, and you walk it daily, with a precision that would be impressive if it weren't so quietly costly. You show up, every time, telling yourself that this nearness, this carefully managed closeness, is enough, even on the days when it very clearly isn't. And then comes the moment you've been quietly dreading. The moment you can no longer sustain the comfortable belief that things might change. It arrives differently for everyone. For some, it's watching them fall for someone else. Seeing the way their face changes around a different person. Recognizing in that change everything you've been hoping they might one day feel for you. For some, it's a conversation where they describe their ideal person, casually, thoughtlessly, with no awareness of what that description does to the person sitting across from them. For some, it's simpler and somehow more devastating. It's just a moment. An ordinary, unremarkable moment where you're both in the same space, and you realize, with a clarity that arrives like cold water, that you are invisible to them. Not unimportant, not disliked, nothing dramatic, just invisible. Their eyes pass over you without actually seeing you, while yours cannot stop. And in that single quiet gap between how you see them and how they see you, the glass becomes real. You press your hands against it and finally understand that it was always there. You were just too close to feel it. Here is what makes unrequited love its own specific kind of suffering. You cannot talk about it properly. With most pain, you have the option of sharing it, of bringing it out into the open, of saying, "This happened, and it hurt, and I need someone to know." But this pain has nowhere clean to go. You can't grieve it publicly because there's nothing official to grieve. No relationship that began and ended. No loss that other people can recognize and respond to with appropriate tenderness. What do you say? I'm heartbroken over someone who never knew they had my heart. I'm exhausted from loving someone who looks straight through me. These truths are real, but they're hard to say out loud without feeling like you're asking for sympathy over something the world doesn't have a name for. So you carry it alone, through ordinary days that don't know how heavy they are, through every interaction that asks you to just be normal, through every well-meaning friend who tells you to move on, as if moving on were a decision rather than an arrival, as if you could simply choose to stop pressing your hands against the glass. You are not standing out in the rain on purpose. You are standing there because the heart makes its attachments without consulting logic, and because some part of you still believes, quietly, stubbornly, against the evidence, that one day they might look up and actually see you. Here is the most honest thing I can offer you, and I want you to receive it not as a dismissal of what you feel, but as something said with genuine care. You cannot love someone into choosing you. You can be present, patient, attentive, and loyal, and everything a person could reasonably want. And it still might not move them. Because love isn't something you earn through proximity or devotion. It either lives in someone or it doesn't. And no amount of standing outside in the rain changes what's on the other side of the glass. I know that's hard to hear. I know somewhere in you there is still a voice insisting that if they just knew, if they could see how fully and carefully you hold them, everything would change. Maybe. But here is what that voice is costing you while you listen to it. It is costing you the present. Every moment pressed against someone else's glass is a moment you are not standing in your own warmth, not building your own life, not being available to the person who is out there right now, looking for exactly the kind of love you have been pouring into someone who cannot receive it. That love you carry, that generous, attentive, deeply loyal love, it deserves a door that opens. Not a door you have to stand outside of. A door that swings open the moment you approach. A warmth that reaches out to meet you. Someone who doesn't need to be convinced. Someone who sees you clearly, without hesitation, and pulls you in from the cold. You were never meant to spend your life out in that rain. You were meant to be let in. Step back from the glass. Turn around. Your door is somewhere behind you, and it is already open.